I didn't plan to choose anyone that night. I planned to follow orders and leave. The wind had already erased the road when she appeared out of the white, a teenage mother clutching a baby too small for that cold. Snow cut sideways. Sirens were hours away. Protocol said, keep moving. Liability said, don't stop. The storm didn't care. He braked anyway. By morning, reports would be written. Names would be checked. A signature would decide who was allowed to stay warm and who would be sent back into the dark. The girl's hands shook as she pressed her child closer, not begging, measuring. The Marine watched the clock, the road, the rules. He knew one choice would cost him his career. The other would cost them their lives. Later, people would call it mercy. Others would call it misconduct. But no one noticed the small detail that didn't fit. The baby's hospital band was dated tomorrow. If you're here for Western love and stories where conscience outruns the law, stay until the end. Subscribe for more frontier stories, and tell me which city you're watching from. Wind drove the snow sideways, hard enough to sting. Eliza Boone leaned into it, boots slipping on ice she couldn't see. Her arms locked around Caleb as if bone could keep the cold out. The baby's breath fluttered against her throat. Too light, too quiet. And she bent her head until her cheek touched the wool of his hat. The town behind her had gone dark, doors shut, rules posted. Ahead, the highway dissolved into white. Her bag tore at the seam. Papers spilled and skittered, one sheet slapping her leg before the wind claimed the rest. Eliza snatched the last page and shoved it inside her coat without looking. She didn't need to read it again to know what it asked for. She kept walking. The snow found every opening. It slid down her collar, soaked her sleeves, burned her fingers numb. She counted steps the way her mother once counted beads, a habit that lingered long after prayer left the house. Somewhere a church bell rang for evening service, muffled and far, the sound thin as a promise. Eliza didn't turn toward it. I will not kneel here. Her knee buckled. She caught herself on a guardrail rimed with ice and tasted blood where she bit her lip. Caleb whimpered, then stilled. That frightened her more than the wind. She pressed her mouth to his hat. Stay, she said, the word breaking in the air. The road hummed with nothing. Headlights cut through the storm. A pickup eased onto the shoulder, tires grinding, engine idling low. The driver's door opened, and a man stepped down, broad-shouldered, his coat stiff with weather. Jack didn't rush. He took in the way Eliza held the baby, the color at the child's mouth, the way the snow had pasted itself to her hair like chalk. A dog leapt from the back and stopped short, body angled between them and the open road, ears up. Jack lifted a hand. The dog sat. Ma'am, Jack said, voice steady enough to hear through the wind. Are you hurt? My baby, Eliza said. She couldn't make the rest come out. Jack closed the distance in 2 strides. He didn't take Caleb at first. He shielded them with his body, blocking the wind, and peeled off his outer coat. Only then did he reach, careful, the way you reach for something that can't afford to be dropped. He checked the baby's hands, the tiny feet. His jaw tightened. Let's get him warm, Jack said. It wasn't a question. Inside the truck, the heater roared. Jack wrapped Caleb, then set him back against Eliza's chest and watched for breath. The dog climbed into the back and lay down without being told. The wipers smeared white into gray. Jack pulled onto the road. "Why stop?" Eliza asked, words shaking loose now that she wasn't walking. Jack kept his eyes forward. "Because I saw you." He shifted gears. "And because storms don't take turns." The clinic lights burned too bright, a square of mercy against the night. A nurse moved fast, hands practiced, voice low. "Slow warming," she said. "We'll take him." Eliza let go and felt her arms ache with the space it left. Jack stood at the door, saying nothing, giving the room its air. Eliza's fingers found the paper inside her coat. It was damp, the red stamp blurred, set a hair off where it should have been. She smoothed it with her palm and read the line she'd tried not to see. Words about consent and compliance, about housing and school, about guardianship if she failed to be stable. She folded it small and held it like a coal. "He will take my son." Jack noticed. "Did they make you sign something?" "Not yet," Eliza said. "They said tonight." Jack nodded once. "Then not tonight." Outside, the wind beat on the windows as if asking to be let in. The nurse returned with a blanket and a clipboard. "He'll be okay," she said. "But the roads are closing. You shouldn't travel." "I don't have anywhere," Eliza said. The truth landed and stayed. Jack didn't look at the paper in her hand. He looked at her face. "Oh." "There's a place," he said. "Temporary. Legal." The word mattered. Eliza felt it. "They'll call," she said. "They'll say I ran." "Then we'll answer," Jack said. He took out his phone and noted the time, the weather, the nurse's name. The dog lifted its head, then settled again when Jack's hand dropped to his knee. Control. Always control. A small wreath hung crooked on the clinic door, pine needles shedding on the mat. Someone had tied a red ribbon around it, the color bright as a wound. Eliza thought of the church bell again, of a manger scene she'd dusted as a girl, the way the stable smelled of straw and animals and mercy that didn't ask for papers. She swallowed. "I am not alone." They left with the storm still loud. Jack drove slow, careful. The dog watched the dark. In the house behind the trees, the heat came up steady, the kind that doesn't lie. Jack set the baby down and checked the locks. Eliza sat, breath easing, the paper warm against her ribs. Jack turned to her. "They'll want a meeting tomorrow," he said. "Do you want me there?" Eliza looked at her son, then at the door, then back at Jack. The night pressed close, waiting. Morning did not arrive so much as it seeped in, pale and cautious. Eliza woke on the edge of the couch with her boots still on, the ache in her calves reminding her she had not meant to sleep. Caleb lay warm against her chest, breath fuller now, a small weight that anchored the room. The heater clicked and held. Outside, branches bowed under snow, quiet as if listening. Jack stood at the counter, back to her, pouring water into a kettle. He moved the way men do when they do not expect comfort, efficient, exact. The dog lay by the door, head on paws, eyes open. "You should eat," Jack said, without turning. Eliza nodded and did not move. She reached into her coat and took out the folded page. It had dried overnight. The red stamp still sat wrong, leaning into the margin as if it had slipped while no one was looking. She smoothed it flat on her knee. Jack set a mug down and finally looked. "That it?" She held it up. "They said it keeps me enrolled." Jack took the paper and read. He did not hurry. When he finished, he turned it over, traced the stamp with a thumb. "This line here," he said. "It shouldn't be buried. They told me it was standard." Jack set the page back into her hands. "Standard doesn't mean lawful." Eliza felt something hard loosen in her chest. Not relief. Permission. "They'll say I'm unstable," she said. "No address. A baby. Winter." "They'll say it," Jack agreed, "and you'll answer with facts." The kettle whistled. Jack poured, set the mug within reach. Eliza took a sip. Heat spread and stayed. She watched Jack check the window latch, then the back door. The dog followed his eyes, not his feet. I learned to count exits young. The phone buzzed on the table. Eliza flinched before she looked. A name she knew by title alone lit the screen. Housing Director. She let it ring out. Jack didn't tell her what to do. He watched her choose. The call came again. Eliza took it this time and set it on the table, speaker on. "Good morning," she said. Her voice surprised her. "Ms. Boone," the woman said, smooth as glass. "We're concerned. You left without completing the process." "I didn't sign," Eliza said. "You were offered support." "I was offered a condition," Eliza said. She glanced at Jack, then back to the phone. "I'm requesting a meeting with a third party present." Silence stretched. The dog shifted, then went still. "That may delay resolution," the woman said. "I can wait," Eliza said. The call ended. The room breathed again. Jack nodded once. "We document everything." He pulled a pad from his coat and wrote the time, the words he'd heard, the weather. Eliza watched the pencil move, neat and spare. She placed the paper on the table beside his notes. "Clinic can give you a letter," Jack said. "Condition. Timing." "They already said." "Good," Jack said. "Then we include it." A knock came at the door, light but firm. Eliza stood too fast and steadied herself on the chair. Jack moved first, placing himself between her and the sound. He opened the door a hand's width. A deputy stood on the step, hat rim white with snow. "Morning," he said. "Roads are reopening. I was asked to check." Jack stepped aside so the man could see Eliza and the baby. "We're fine," Jack said. "Clinic last night." The deputy nodded, eyes softening when he saw Caleb. "You'll need to report your location," he said to Eliza. "Standard." She nodded. "I will." The deputy hesitated. "They may call us," he added. Jack's voice stayed level. "Then we'll be here." When the door closed, Eliza sank back onto the couch. The paper on the table seemed to tilt toward her, asking again. "They'll try to hurry you," Jack said. "Hurry makes mistakes." "What if they bring child services?" Eliza asked. Jack did not lie. "Then we make sure they bring the right ones, and we make sure you're heard." Eliza looked at her son. His fingers opened and closed, finding nothing and everything. She pressed her mouth to his hair. "I can work," she said. "I can pay." "I know," Jack said. "That's not what this is about." The phone buzzed again. A text this time. "Meeting today, noon. Bring documents." Eliza exhaled. "They're moving fast." "So are we," Jack said. He picked up the paper and slid it into a clear sleeve, then placed it in a folder with the clinic letter. He handed it to her. "You carry it." She took the folder. It was heavier than paper should be. Outside, the sun broke through in thin bands, lighting the snow in a way that made it look forgiving. Eliza stood and pulled on her coat. The dog rose and sat, waiting. At the door, Eliza paused. "If I say no," she said, "if I don't sign anything." Jack met her eyes. "Then we build a longer road." She nodded. The fear was still there, but it had edges now. She could hold it. They stepped into the cold together. The house locked behind them. The day opened its mouth. At the bottom of the steps, Eliza stopped and turned back to Jack. "Will you sit in the room?" Jack considered. "If you want." Eliza tightened her grip on the folder. "Stay," she said. The word felt like a door. Jack nodded. "I will." Behind them, the road waited, cleared just enough to pass. The meeting room smelled of old coffee and floor cleaner. Eliza felt it the moment she stepped inside, the way a place can tell you it has decided things before you arrive. A long table ran the length of the room, its surface nicked and polished by years of hands that had signed and slid papers across it. The window looked out on the parking lot, where snow had been pushed into gray banks that no one claimed. Jack took the chair to her left without asking. He set nothing on the table. He didn't lean back. He sat the way he stood, present, contained. Caleb slept against Eliza's chest, wrapped tight. She adjusted the edge of his blanket and waited. The housing director entered with a thin smile and a folder that looked heavier than it should. She did not sit right away. She placed the folder at the center of the table, squared it to the edge, and only then took her chair. "Thank you for coming," she said. "We're all concerned about your stability." Eliza nodded once. She did not speak. "Winter presents risks," the woman continued. "Our role is to minimize them." Jack's gaze stayed on the table. He did not interrupt. The folder opened. Papers fanned. A pen rolled and was caught. The director slid the familiar page forward, the red stamp leaning as it had before. Eliza felt the room narrow. "This document," the woman said, "allows us to keep you enrolled while ensuring your child's safety." Eliza placed her own folder on the table and opened it. The clinic letter went down first, then her notes, written small and careful. She set the stamped page beside them so the tilt could be seen. "I'm requesting that we address this line," Eliza said, tapping the buried clause with her finger. Her voice held. "The one about guardianship." The director's smile thinned. "It's standard." "Then it can be written plainly," Eliza said. Silence. The kind that weighs. Jack spoke then, soft and exact. "We're asking for clarity. On the record." The director's eyes flicked to him and back. "You're not a party to this." Jack did not argue. He said nothing else. The door opened again. A deputy stepped in, hat tucked under his arm. He nodded to the room and took the chair at the far end. The balance shifted, a fraction. Eliza felt Caleb stir. She pressed her palm to his back, counting his breaths until they evened. "They think I'll rush." "Here's our concern," the director said. "If you don't sign today, housing assistance may be suspended." Eliza met her eyes. "Temporarily," she said. "Pending review." The director paused. "That would be the process." "Then I choose the process," Eliza said. Jack's knee moved once beneath the table and went still. The director closed the folder and opened it again, a small reset. You understand the consequences? I do, Eliza said. Her hand did not leave the paper. I'm not refusing help. I'm refusing this condition. The deputy cleared his throat. We can schedule a review, he said, with child services present. Eliza nodded. That's fine. The director's pen tapped. Once, twice. There's another option, she said. A revised document, short-term compliance. She slid a new page across. The language was cleaner, the red stamp straight. Eliza read every line. She read them again. She looked at Jack. He did not nod. He did not shake his head. He waited. The room held its breath. I won't sign anything that moves my child without cause, Eliza said. If you need proof I'm capable, I'll provide it. Work hours, childcare, address. And if we can't place you immediately? The director asked. Then I'll manage, Eliza said. Legally. The deputy watched her for a long moment, then wrote something on his pad. The director leaned back at last. We'll proceed to review, she said. You'll receive notice. When? Eliza asked. Today, the director said, by close of business. Jack stood. It was subtle, but it changed the room. We'll wait, he said. Outside, the air cut clean. Eliza's legs shook once she was through the door, the effort of holding done. Jack took the folder and handed it back to her. You did what you said, he said. She nodded. I didn't sign. That matters, Jack said. They walked to the truck. The dog jumped up and lay down without instruction. The engine turned over. Snow slid from the hood in a soft rush. The phone rang as they pulled out. Eliza answered on the second ring. Ms. Boone, the director said, we'll need verification of employment by tomorrow morning. Eliza looked at Jack. I can start today, she said. Clinic, cleaning, anything. There's a posting, the director said. 3 hours, evening. I'll be there, Eliza said. She ended the call and sat back, the weight of the day settling where it belonged. I can stand. Jack pulled into the clinic lot and parked. I'll wait, he said. You don't have to, Eliza said. I know, Jack said. She stepped out into the cold with her son and the folder pressed to her side. The door closed behind her, not as a barrier, but as a line drawn. Inside, the clinic lights waited, and somewhere between the table she'd left and the work she was about to take, another decision waited too. The clinic smelled different at night. Bleach and boiled water, the faint sweetness of disinfectant that tried to pretend it was mercy. Eliza tied her hair back and pulled on gloves that snapped at the wrist. Caleb slept in a carrier against her chest, his weight steady as a promise she had made without words. A supervisor handed her a list. 3 hours, she said. Hallways, intake, laundry. Eliza nodded and started. Mops moved. Bags lifted. The building breathed in its tired way, doors opening and closing, with small sounds that counted as progress. Eliza kept her eyes on the floor until she didn't. A chart slid off a counter, and she caught it before it hit. She set it back where it belonged. She did not hurry. She did not ask to be seen. I will not rush. Halfway through the second hour, the carrier strap pinched. Eliza adjusted it and felt Caleb stir. She stopped by the warming cabinet and held her hands there until the ache faded. A nurse passed, smiled once, kept walking. No one asked her story. At the end of the hall, a glass door showed the parking lot in slices. Snow fell again, softer now, the kind that covers rather than cuts. A pickup idled at the curb. Jack stood beside it, collar up, hands in his pockets, watching the doors without making them feel watched. The dog lay in the cab, chin on paws. Eliza looked away and kept working. The phone buzzed in her pocket. She finished the row she was on before checking it. A message, clipped and clean. Review scheduled tomorrow. 9 a.m. Bring verification. Eliza exhaled and texted back a photo of the sign-in sheet with her name and hours circled. Received, came the reply. She folded the phone away and went on. The last cart rattled into the service elevator. Eliza wiped her hands and clocked out. The supervisor nodded. "You did fine," she said, like it was a fact and not a favor. Outside, the cold took its turn. Jack opened the passenger door before Eliza reached it and steadied the carrier while she climbed in. He said nothing about the snow starting again. He did not comment on the time. "Tomorrow," Eliza said, because the word needed air. 9. Jack nodded. "I'll be there." The house welcomed them back without ceremony. Eliza laid Caleb down and checked his feet. Warm. She sat at the table and spread the papers again. She wrote a list this time. Childcare options, bus routes, wages. Each line felt like a rung. Jack made tea and set it near her elbow. He didn't sit. He leaned against the counter and watched the kettle cool. "Someone may come by," he said, "before morning." Eliza's pen paused. "Here?" Jack nodded. "Standard." She swallowed. "Then I'll answer." A knock came sooner than she expected, firm and unafraid. Jack opened the door and stepped aside. 2 workers stood on the porch, coats zipped high, faces set to neutral. "Evening," one said. "We're here to check." Eliza stood with Caleb against her chest and met them halfway. She did not apologize. She did not explain more than asked. She handed over the folder when requested, opened it when told, closed it when finished. The house held. They looked. They noted. They thanked her for her time. When the door closed, Eliza's shoulders dropped. She sank onto the couch and pressed her forehead to the back of Caleb's head. "They'll file," Jack said. "I know," Eliza said. She sat up. "I'm ready." Sleep came in pieces. Eliza woke once to the sound of Jack moving through the house, checking the latch, the window, the quiet places. The dog followed and settled again. The heater clicked. The night kept its distance. Morning brought the color of weak gold. Eliza dressed without waking Caleb and tucked the folder under her arm. Jack drove them into town slow and steady, the roads wet and forgiving. The building at 9 o'clock had the same smell as yesterday. Coffee, paper, decisions. Eliza signed in and waited. Jack took the chair beside her and left space between them, like a line you cross only when you mean it. They were called. The room was smaller this time, the table round. No head of it. The questions came measured. Hours, plans, support. Eliza answered with what she had and did not invent the rest. When they asked about housing, she said, "Temporary, safe." When they asked about work, she slid the verification forward. Jack spoke once. "She's meeting requirements," he said, "on time." The silence that followed was not empty. The decision did not arrive with trumpets. It arrived with a sentence. Assistance continues pending review, the chair said. Next steps in writing. Eliza nodded. She stood. She did not reach for the pen they offered. Outside, the air tasted like metal and thaw. Eliza held the folder tight enough to feel it. I can breathe. Jack opened the truck and waited. As Eliza climbed in, her phone buzzed again. A new message. A number she didn't know. We need to talk today. Eliza stared at the screen. The snow fell thin and quiet, as if listening. She looked at Jack. If I say no, we'll make a plan, Jack said. Eliza typed back, tomorrow, with counsel present. She sent it, set the phone down, and faced the road. The day had not ended. It had only changed its terms. The snow quit sometime before noon, not with drama, but with fatigue. It thinned, then stopped, leaving the street wet and honest. Eliza felt the change the way you feel. A room exhale after an argument. She carried Caleb inside and set him down, counting his breaths until they lined up with her own. Jack hung his coat and checked the phone. They'll try again, he said. Different angle. Eliza nodded. She knew the pattern now. Pressure moved like water. When one door closed, it seeped under another. The message sat on her screen, gray and patient. We need to talk today. No name, no reason. She typed once, erased, then typed again. Tomorrow, in writing. She sent it and turned the phone face down. I won't be hurried. The kettle clicked. Jack poured. Eliza took a sip and opened the folder. She added today's decision to the stack, slid it into place, and marked the margin with a pencil. The line felt clean. A car rolled past, slow. Then another. The neighborhood had woken. Someone shoveled. Someone laughed. The world went on as if it always had. The knock came mid-afternoon. Jack opened the door and stepped aside. A woman stood there, scarf tight, eyes too practiced for the hour. I'm with Outreach, she said. We help families avoid mistakes. Eliza joined them in the doorway, Caleb warm against her. We're not taking visitors today, she said. It won't take long, the woman said, smile steady. Just a conversation. Eliza didn't move. In writing, she said. Tomorrow. The woman glanced at Jack. He said nothing. I'll leave a card, she said, placing it on the rail like a wager. You should think about what's best. Eliza watched the card flutter, then settle. I am, she said. The door closed. The house stayed quiet. Jack picked up the card and turned it over. Same office, he said. He set it aside. They spent the rest of the afternoon doing small things that added up. Eliza washed bottles. Jack fixed a loose hinge. The dog lay near the door, breathing slow, as if guarding the hour itself. No one spoke much. There was nothing to add. At dusk, Eliza's phone rang again. This time a name appeared. She let it ring twice, then answered. Hello? Eliza, a man said, voice familiar and careful. It's your father. The word landed heavy. She closed her eyes. I can't talk right now. I heard there was trouble, he said. People talk. They always do, Eliza said. We can fix this, he said. Come home. We'll make it right. Eliza looked at Caleb's hand opening and closing in sleep. "No," she said. The word came clean. "Not today." There was a pause long enough to count. "You're being stubborn," he said. "I'm being careful," Eliza said. "That's different." He sighed. "Think about the baby." "I am," she said. "Every minute." The line went dead. Eliza set the phone down and sat still until the shaking passed. Jack didn't ask. He brought her a glass of water and set it close. Outside, lights came on one by one. Somewhere a radio played a carol off-key. A wreath hung crooked in a window across the street, ribbon faded but holding. Eliza watched it sway and thought of steadiness as a choice, not a gift. Later, the deputy returned alone, hat in hand. "Just checking in," he said. "They're pushing." Eliza nodded. "They can." He hesitated. "If they call child services again." "I'll answer," Eliza said. "With counsel." Jack added, "and send with documentation." The deputy tipped his hat and left. Night settled. Eliza fed Caleb and laid him down. She sat at the table with the folder open and wrote a list for tomorrow. Bus, meeting, hours, childcare visit. She added one more line and circled it. No signatures. "I choose the long road." The phone buzzed once more. A new message, short and sharp. "Sign tonight and keep your aid." Eliza read it twice. She stood, walked to the window, and watched the street. A pickup idled at the corner, engine low, waiting for nothing. She turned back to the table. Jack met her eyes. He didn't tell her what to do. Eliza typed slowly. "I decline. Schedule review." She sent it and placed the phone face down. A moment passed. Then another. The house did not collapse. The night did not rush in. The heater clicked and held. Jack broke the quiet. "They'll escalate." Eliza nodded. "So will I." She gathered the folder and slid it into her bag. She stood straighter than she had all week, not because she was braver, but because she was prepared. At the door, she paused. "Tomorrow," she said, testing the word. Jack nodded. "Tomorrow." Outside, the street lay open and wet, reflecting the lights like a ledger you could read if you knew where to look. Eliza stepped into the cold with her son and felt the terms change, not in her favor, but on her terms. Morning came sharp and clear, the kind that makes every sound count. Eliza dressed without rushing, button by button, as if time were something she could hold. Caleb watched her with one eye open, then closed it again, trust heavy as sleep. Jack checked the weather and the routes. "They'll look for gaps," he said. Eliza nodded. She slid the folder into her bag and felt its weight settle where fear used to be. They left while the sun was still low, the truck rolling through streets washed clean by thaw. The dog lay quiet in the back, the way quiet means ready. The building was different this time, smaller. No long table, just 2 chairs and a desk with a lamp angled too low. The woman behind it smiled like someone who had practiced. "This won't take long," she said. Eliza sat and did not place the bag on the floor. She set it on her lap. They asked about hours. Eliza answered. They asked about housing. Eliza answered. They asked about support. Eliza answered and named names that could be called. Each answer landed and stayed. A man entered midway through, older, careful. He did not sit. He leaned against the file cabinet and listened. When Eliza finished, he asked one question. If assistants paused, what would you do? Eliza looked at Caleb. Work, she said. Document. Appeal. The man nodded once. They handed her a paper to initial. Eliza read it all. She slid it back. This line needs revision. The smile faltered. It's standard, the woman said. Then revise it, Eliza said. Silence returned, heavier this time. The man cleared his throat. We'll revise, Cecil, he said. Initial the rest. Eliza initialed where it was clean. She did not rush. She did not apologize. Jack waited outside. When she stepped through the doors, the air felt wider. How'd it go? He asked. They measured, Eliza said. I didn't shrink. The phone rang before they reached the truck. Eliza answered. Hello? We need you back, the voice said. Now. Eliza closed her eyes. In writing, she said. A pause. Fine, the voice said. By end of day. They drove to the clinic. Eliza clocked in and worked the hours she'd been promised. She wiped surfaces and emptied bins and listened to the building hum. She felt the hours stack like bricks. I am still standing. Near closing, a nurse pulled her aside. There's a call for you, she said. Up front. Eliza took the phone. This is Eliza. We've reconsidered, the voice said. Temporary housing extension, 30 days. Eliza said nothing. Pending compliance, the voice added. Eliza took a breath. Define compliance. A list followed. Eliza listened. She wrote. She asked for it in writing. She ended the call. Outside, dusk slid in sideways. Jack waited, engine off, the dog alert. Eliza climbed in and handed him the notes. They're moving, Jack said. They always do, Eliza said. She watched the road open under the headlights. So am I. They stopped once at a store for diapers and bread. Eliza paid with the money she'd earned and did not look back. At home, she laid the groceries out and put Caleb down. She opened the folder and added the new page. She marked the date and time and circled the phrase that mattered. 30 days. Jack leaned on the counter. That's time, he said. It's not safety, Eliza said. No, Jack agreed, but it's ground. The knock came late, careful this time. Eliza stood before Jack moved. She opened the door herself. The deputy held out a folded notice. Just delivering, he said. Eliza took it and read. Review in 2 weeks, she said. He nodded. You're doing what you should. Thank you, Eliza said. When the door closed, she sat and pressed the notice flat. She placed it beneath the others, a base. Night brought a different quiet, one that waited for an answer. Eliza fed Caleb and watched his eyes follow the lamp. She thought of the stable she'd once dusted, of straw and animals and a child laid down because there was nowhere else. She smiled once, small. I choose to stay. Her phone buzzed again. A new message. We can end this if you cooperate. Eliza typed back. Send the terms. She set the phone down and stood by the window. Jack joined her, a step away. They'll test you, he said. They already did, Eliza said. She turned from the glass and faced the room. I passed. Outside, a car idled and moved on. Inside, the heater clicked and held. Eliza gathered the folder and placed it by the door, ready for morning. At the threshold, she paused and looked at Jack. "If they offer a shortcut—" "I'll ask the questions," Jack said. Eliza nodded. The night did not answer. It waited. The message arrived just after dawn, neat as a folded flag. Meeting moved up. Private office. 10 o'clock. Eliza read it twice, then slid the phone into her pocket without answering. Caleb stirred, lips searching, and she adjusted him until the small sound settled. Jack stood at the sink, rinsing a mug. "Private office," he said, not looking up. "That's the shortcut." Eliza nodded. She felt it too. The way the air tightens when someone wants to finish you quickly. "We go," she said, "but we don't hurry." They dressed with care. Papers went into the folder in the order they'd earned them. Eliza checked the clinic letter once more, then closed the flap. Outside, the street held a thin shine. Yesterday's melt turned to glass. The truck rolled slow. The building they entered did not look official. That was the point. Soft chairs, plants that never needed water, a receptionist who smiled and did not ask for names. Eliza's shoulders squared. Jack took the seat to her right and set his hands flat on his knees. The door opened and a man stepped in, older than the rest, eyes tired but sharp. He closed the door behind him and leaned against the desk. "We can make this easier," he said, "for everyone." Eliza waited. "You sign today," he continued, sliding a single page forward, "and assistance continues without interruption. No reviews, no visits." Eliza picked up the page and read. It was shorter, cleaner. The red stamp was straight. She turned it over. Blank. "What's the condition?" she asked. The man smiled. "Temporary placement during the winter. You'll have access. It's a safeguard." Jack spoke once. "Define placement." The man's smile thinned. "Care while you stabilize." Eliza set the page down. "Where?" "Approved homes," the man said. "You can visit." "How often?" Eliza asked. The man shrugged. "We'll work it out." "I know this trick." Eliza slid the page back across the desk. "Put it in writing." The man exhaled. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." "No," Eliza said. "I'm making it clear." He straightened and tapped the desk. "We have discretion." "So do I," Eliza said. Silence. The plants did not move. The man picked up the page and tore it clean in half. "Then we proceed," he said. "The long way." Eliza stood. Jack stood with her. They left without shaking hands. Outside, the air cut bright. Eliza's hands shook once, then steadied. Jack opened the truck and waited. "You did right," he said. "I didn't sign," Eliza said. The words felt like proof. They drove straight to the clinic. Eliza clocked in and worked until her arms ached. She pushed carts and wiped counters and let the hours stack where doubt had been. At break, she called the childcare line she'd circled and left her name. She called a church office and asked about evening care. The voice on the other end did not hurry her. A bell rang somewhere in the building, sharp and clean. Eliza closed her eyes for one breath and kept going. "I can carry this." The call came while she was folding linens. "Ms. Boone," the voice said, cooler now. "Given your refusal, Assistance will pause pending review. Eliza closed the cart. Effective when? She asked. End of day. Eliza wrote it down. Thank you, she said. Outside, dusk pressed in early. Jack waited by the truck, engine off. The dog lifted its head and lay back down. Eliza climbed in and handed Jack the note. They pulled it, she said. Jack nodded. Then we move. They stopped at the store for staples. Eliza paid with her wages and did not look away. At home, she laid Caleb down and packed a small bag. Diapers, bottles, the folder. She left the rest where it was. A knock came at the door, not loud. The deputy stood on the step, face apologetic. Just letting you know, he said. They called it in. Eliza nodded. I expected that. He hesitated. If you need... I have what I need, Eliza said. The deputy tipped his hat and left. Night settled heavy. Eliza fed Caleb and listened to his swallow, steady and sure. She zipped the bag and set it by the door. Jack watched without comment. Her phone buzzed once more. A new message. Last chance tonight. Eliza stared at the words. The house felt small and strong at the same time. She typed and erased, then typed again. Send counsel. Otherwise, no. She sent it and placed the phone face down. Jack spoke quietly. They'll escalate. Eliza nodded. So will I? She lifted the bag and took a breath. If they come, we answer together, Jack said. Eliza opened the door and stepped onto the porch. The cold met her like a test. She didn't flinch. Behind her, the house held. Ahead, the street lay open and dark, a line you choose or don't. Eliza tightened her grip on the bag and looked once at Jack. Stay, she said. Jack nodded. I'm here. Down the block, headlights turned the corner and slowed. The sound of tires on wet pavement carrying like a question that wanted an answer. The headlights stopped at the curb and stayed there, engine ticking as it cooled. Eliza waited on the porch with Caleb tight against her, the bag at her feet, the folder inside it heavy as law. Jack stood half a step behind her, not touching, close enough to matter. A woman got out first. Coat neat. Clipboard hugged to her chest. A man followed, older, hands empty, face set in the careful lines of procedure. They paused at the gate, as if the house itself might speak. Ms. Boone, the woman said, we're here to ensure the child's safety. Eliza nodded. He's safe. We'll need to come in. Eliza did not move aside. You can speak here. The woman glanced past her into the warm light, then back. It would be better inside. Here is fine, Eliza said. She shifted Caleb slightly, making his face visible, his color good. The wind tugged at the ribbon on the wreath by the door and let go. Jack spoke, low and even. We're recording the time, he said, and the conditions. The man cleared his throat. We received notice assistance paused. I have the notice, Eliza said. She reached into the bag and placed it on the rail, unfolded, flat. Effective end of day. And you declined compliance, the woman said. I declined removal, Eliza said. That's different. The woman made a mark on her clipboard. We can arrange temporary placement tonight. Eliza felt the word land and slide, the way it always did. Where? The woman named a location that was not close, not reachable without a car. Eliza nodded once. Visitation? Arrangements can be made, the woman said. How often? Eliza asked. The woman hesitated. The man shifted his weight. I know this silence. Eliza reached into the bag again and took out the clinic letter. She set it beside the notice. Medical clearance, she said. Work verification. She added the timesheet, the childcare inquiry, the review schedule. The papers formed a line you could read. We'll need to see the home, the woman said. You can, Eliza said. Now. They stepped onto the porch. The heat breathed out when the door opened. The dog rose from its place by the door and sat, quiet as a chair. Jack held his ground, saying nothing. Inside, the woman walked the rooms and checked boxes. The man watched Eliza's hands as she moved, steady, sure. Caleb slept through it, breath even. At the table, the woman stopped. You understand, she said. This doesn't end tonight. Eliza nodded. Neither do I. The man looked at the papers again. He read slower this time. We'll file, he said. Given the documentation, placement tonight isn't indicated. The woman's pen paused. Pending review, she added. Eliza exhaled. Not relief, not victory, room. Thank you, she said. They left with the same care they'd arrived. The street swallowed their footsteps. Inside, Eliza closed the door and leaned back against it, the wood firm at her shoulders. Jack stood where he was, a presence that did not crowd. The dog lay down again. You did that, Jack said. Eliza nodded. Her legs shook once, then stopped. They keep score, she said. So do I. She gathered the papers and slid them back into the folder. She did not put the bag away. The phone buzzed on the table. Eliza stared at it until it rang. She answered. Hello? Ms. Boone, the director said, voice tight. We'll need to speak in the morning. In writing, Eliza said. With counsel. A breath. Fine, the voice said. 9. Eliza ended the call and set the phone down. I didn't bend. They ate bread and soup without ceremony. Eliza fed Caleb and watched his eyes track the light. She thought of the manger again. Not as a lesson, but as a place that held because people stayed. She hummed a carol under her breath and stopped when it caught. Later, Jack checked the locks and the window. They'll come back, he said. I know, Eliza said. She zipped the bag and set it by the door again. I'll be ready. Sleep came shallow. Eliza woke to the sound of snow starting again, soft and persistent. She rose and stood by the window. The street reflected the lamps like a ledger, each square a mark. At dawn, the phone buzzed with a new message. Agenda attached. Eliza opened it. Bullet points, conditions, a clause that leaned. She closed the file and looked at Jack. They want a concession. Jack nodded. Then we ask for a record. Eliza packed diapers and bottles and the folder. She pulled on her coat and lifted the bag. At the door, she paused and looked back at the room that had held. Stay, she said, testing the word again. Jack nodded. Always. They stepped into the cold together. The snow covered their tracks as fast as they made them, not erasing, just quieting. Ahead, the building waited with its lights on and its questions ready. Eliza tightened her grip and went to meet them. not because she was unafraid, but because she had learned the difference between a shortcut and a road. The building at 9 o'clock wore a cleaner face than it had earned. Windows bright, floors polished. Eliza felt the shine the way you feel a question that already knows its answer. She adjusted Caleb in the carrier and stepped inside with Jack a pace behind her. They were led to a different room this time, smaller, warmer, a circle of chairs instead of a table, no edges to brace against. The director arrived with a legal aid and a folder thin enough to hide intent. "Thank you for coming," the director said. "We've reviewed your file." Eliza nodded. She did not sit until Jack did. "We're prepared to continue assistance," the director said, "with a concession." There it was. Eliza felt it settle in her bones. The aide slid a page forward. One page. Clean language. Straight stamp. Eliza read once, then again. The word temporary appeared twice. The word placement once. The rest lived in margins and timing. "What's the concession?" Eliza asked. "Weekly check-ins," the director said. "Unannounced." Eliza looked up. "At my residence?" "Yes," the director said. "And a safety plan acknowledging outside supervision." Jack spoke, quiet as a hinge. "Define supervision." The aide cleared his throat. "Visits, documentation." Eliza held the page with both hands. Caleb shifted, made a small sound, then slept again. She felt the old pressure rise, the wish to end it, to make it stop. "I won't trade quiet for loss." Eliza set the page down. "Add a clause," she said. "Visits by appointment unless there's cause, and no movement of my child without a court order." The director's smile did not change. "That's not our standard." "Then make it mine," Eliza said. Silence took the room. The legal aide whispered to the director. The director nodded once, then slid the page back. "We can add appointment notice," she said. "Not the second." Eliza breathed. "Then no." The director leaned back. "You're choosing the long road." "Yes," Eliza said. She did not look at Jack. She didn't need to. The aide gathered the page. "We'll proceed to review," he said. Outside, the day had teeth. Eliza's hands shook once she hit the air. Jack waited until her breathing steadied. "You okay?" he asked. "I am," Eliza said. She meant it. They drove to the clinic. Eliza worked her hours and picked up an extra shift someone didn't want. She mopped and wiped and let the motion quiet her. At break, she called the childcare office again. This time, a woman answered and gave her a slot for an intake visit. "I'll be there," Eliza said. She wrote it down. "I keep moving." Evening brought a different knock, a neighbor with a loaf of bread and a question in her eyes. Eliza thanked her and did not explain. The bread was warm and real. The phone rang after supper. The director's number. Eliza answered. "Hello?" "We can adjust," the director said. 2 weeks of scheduled visits, then review." Eliza closed her eyes. "Put it in writing." A pause. "We will," the director said. "Tonight." The email arrived with a chime that felt too loud. Eliza read it line by line. The clause was there, typed, narrow but clear. No movement absent court order. She looked at Jack. "This," she said. Jack nodded. "This." They printed. They signed where it was clean. Eliza felt the pen press back against her hand. the paper resisting and yielding. She signed her name once. The house held its breath and let it go. Later, when the lights were low and Caleb fed, Eliza sat at the table and stacked the papers in the order they had been earned. She did not celebrate. She rested. The dog shifted and settled near the door. Jack checked the lock and left it at that. I can stop running. Sleep came heavier this time. Eliza dreamed of roads that didn't narrow when you walked them. She woke before dawn to quiet and a message waiting. Review scheduled. Final determination pending. She read it twice and set the phone down. Jack stood in the doorway with a mug. Coffee, he said. Thank you, Eliza said. She took it and felt the heat spread. Outside, the snow melted in thin lines along the curb, the street honest again. Eliza pulled on her coat and lifted the folder. She paused at the door. If they ask for more, she said. Jack met her eyes. We ask for a record. Eliza nodded. She stepped into the morning, not toward relief, but toward the work of keeping what she had claimed. The final review did not feel final when Eliza walked into the building. It felt provisional, like everything else that had tried to decide her life without asking. The lobby was louder than before. Phones, heels, a printer coughing pages into a tray. She adjusted Caleb and kept moving. Jack waited until she took the first chair, then sat beside her. Not touching. Close enough. They were called into a room with a window that faced nothing. The director was there, the legal aide, and a woman Eliza hadn't met. Older, hair pinned tight, eyes that missed nothing. The chair of the review, Eliza guessed, the one whose name stayed off emails. Ms. Boone, the older woman said, we've read the file. Eliza nodded. She placed the folder on the table and opened it to the first page, then closed it again. She had learned not to scatter. We'll ask a few questions, the woman said. They asked about work. Eliza answered with dates and hours. They asked about childcare. Eliza named the intake, the time, the bus route. They asked about housing. Eliza said, temporary, safe. She did not add gratitude. Jack spoke once when asked. She's met every requirement, he said. On time. The director shifted. The aide wrote. The older woman leaned back. There's concern, she said, about your refusal to cooperate. Eliza looked at her. I cooperated, she said. I didn't surrender. The word hung. The room took it in. The older woman nodded slowly. That distinction matters, she said. She turned to the director. It should be noted. The director's pen paused. They slid a final document across the table. It was thicker this time. Eliza read every page. The clauses stood straighter. The words court order appeared where they should. The dates lined up. Eliza set the document down. I'll sign, she said. She looked up. After we add one line. The older woman raised an eyebrow. Which? Eliza tapped the margin. All visits scheduled. Emergencies defined. Silence. The legal aide whispered. The older woman nodded. Add it. The pen scratched. The line appeared. Eliza read again. She signed once. The room exhaled. Outside, the air felt like winter giving ground inch by inch. Eliza stood on the steps and let the cold sting her face. She did not smile. She breathed. I didn't think, she began. Jack shook his head. You did. They drove to the clinic and dropped the signed copy at intake. Eliza worked her shift without rushing, the motions familiar now, the building less loud. At break, she called the childcare office and confirmed the intake. She wrote the time and underlined it. I keep what I earn. When they returned home, a notice waited on the porch. Eliza read it once. Assistance continues. Review closed. She folded it and placed it in the folder without ceremony. The evening passed with small sounds. A pan on the stove. The heater clicking. Caleb's breath steady and sure. Eliza washed bottles and lined them up. The way order becomes a kind of prayer when you don't say prayers anymore. A knock came after dark, softer than the others. Eliza opened the door herself. The deputy stood there with a small envelope. For you, he said. Eliza opened it. A check, backdated, the amount exact. She looked up. Thank you. He tipped his hat. You did the work, he said, and left. Eliza sat at the table and held the check until the paper warmed. She placed it in the folder and closed it for the night. Jack stood in the doorway, watching the room the way he always did, as if it might change when you weren't looking. What's next? He asked. Eliza thought of the intake, the shifts, the bus routes. She thought of the church office that had called back and left a message about evening care. She thought of the house holding because people stayed. Tomorrow, she said, and then the day after. Jack nodded. He moved to leave, then stopped. There's something else, he said. Eliza looked up. My place, Jack said. It's close to the bus line. It's legal, temporary. Eliza didn't answer right away. She felt the weight of the weeks, the rooms, the tables. She felt the steadiness she'd built with her hands. Terms? She asked. Jack met her eyes. Clear, he said. Written. Eliza smiled. Just once. Not relief. Recognition. They sat in the quiet while the night settled into itself. Eliza lifted Caleb and felt his warmth press into her chest, real and earned. She stood and gathered the folder, the check, the list for morning. At the door, she paused. The street lay open and wet, reflecting the lights like a record you could read if you knew where to look. Eliza tightened her grip and turned back to Jack. Show me the lease, she said. Jack nodded. Tomorrow. Outside, the last snow slid from the eaves and broke apart on the ground. Not gone, just changed. The house kept its score. Eliza kept hers. The lease was 3 pages long and smelled like a copy machine that had done its duty. Eliza held it at the table while Caleb slept, his breath steady enough now to be background instead of alarm. Jack sat across from her, hands folded, eyes on the margins. No surprises, he said. Read it all. Eliza did. She read the rent line twice. She read the dates, the notice period, the clause about guests. She read the part that said temporary without saying what temporary meant. She lifted her eyes. Define it. Jack nodded. He took a pen and wrote beneath the clause, slow and clear, month to month, 30 days' notice by either party. He initialed and slid the pen back. Eliza read again. She circled the line and wrote her initials. She did not hurry. I keep my footing. They signed at the same time, not on purpose. The paper resisted, and then accepted the ink. Jack tore off a copy and handed it to her. Eliza placed it in the folder with the others, the stack now thick enough to feel like something you could stand on. Outside, the night carried the smell of thaw and metal. They drove to the place, small, clean, close to the bus line like he'd said. The light in the kitchen worked. The heater worked. The windows latched. Eliza checked each one herself. "This will do," she said. Jack nodded. "I'll help you move what you need." They moved only what mattered. Clothes, bottles, the folder. The rest could wait. When the door closed behind them, it closed on a room that was empty and honest. Eliza laid Caleb down and stood in the quiet. The quiet was different here. It didn't press. It waited. The phone buzzed once. A message from the childcare office confirming the intake. Eliza typed back, "Thank you," and set the phone down. Jack lingered by the door. "I'll leave you to it." Eliza stopped him with a look. "Stay," she said. Not the old word. A new one. Jack nodded and took the chair, a respectful distance away. The dog lay near the door, head down, a presence that didn't ask. They ate bread and soup off the counter. Eliza washed one plate and set it to dry. She moved through the room like someone learning a map. Later, a knock came, soft, neighborly. Eliza opened the door and found a woman with gray hair and kind eyes holding a folded blanket. "For the baby," she said. "Winter's not done." Eliza accepted it. "Thank you." When the door closed, Eliza spread the blanket over Caleb and watched his fingers curl. She sat on the floor beside the crib and let her back rest against it. "I am here." The next morning came without argument. Eliza took the bus with Caleb snug against her and the folder on her lap. The childcare office smelled of crayons and coffee. Forms were filled. Questions answered. A schedule written and taped to the wall. At the clinic, Eliza worked her shift and took another. She learned where the supplies were kept and which doors stuck. She left with a paycheck folded careful and exact. In the afternoon, the director's office called. Eliza let it ring once before answering. "Yes," she said. "We're updating your file," the director said. "New address." Eliza gave it. "Please note the lease," she added. "We will," the director said, clipped. Eliza ended the call and wrote the time and name in the margin of a page. "Have it now." Jack met her at the door that evening with a small box. "Tools," he said, "if you need." Eliza took it. "Thank you." They fixed a loose cabinet hinge together. Jack held the door. Eliza turned the screw. The hinge caught and held. At dusk, a car slowed in front of the building and moved on. Eliza watched until it was gone. "They'll test the boundary," Jack said. "I know," Eliza said. She didn't move from the window. "It's marked." That night, Eliza slept deeper than she had in weeks. She dreamed of rooms with plain words on the walls. Morning brought a letter slid under the door. Eliza read it standing up. Case closed. Next review in 6 months. She folded it and placed it in the folder. Jack stood in the doorway. "That's time," he said. Eliza nodded. "It's ground." She lifted Caleb and held him to the window. The street below shone wet and open. She felt the weeks settle behind her, not gone, but placed. At the door, Jack paused. "There's a posting," he said. "Full-time. Benefits." Eliza didn't answer right away. She thought of the bus routes, the intake schedule, the lease with plain words. She thought of the long table and the circle of chairs and the room that had tried to finish her quickly. "Show me the hours," she said. Jack smiled once, brief and real. "Tomorrow." They stood in the quiet and let it be earned. The posting was taped crooked on the clinic board, corners curling from being read too often. Eliza stood with Caleb tucked against her and read it twice. Full time. Benefits after 90 days. Evening rotation, not nights. The hours fit the bus line like they'd been cut with care. She tore the tab and folded it small. At the desk, the supervisor looked up. "You want it?" Eliza nodded. "Yes." "Interview's quick," the supervisor said. "Now, if you can." Eliza sat without smoothing her coat. She answered the questions the way she'd learned. Clear, exact, no apology. When they asked about childcare, she named the intake and the schedule. When they asked about reliability, she slid her timesheet across the desk. The supervisor smiled once. "Start Monday," she said. Eliza walked out into the cold and let the air hit her face. It stung in the right way. She didn't call anyone. She rode the bus home and counted stops like rungs. "I keep my hands busy." The apartment smelled like soap and new heat. Eliza laid Caleb down and taped the schedule to the fridge. She circled Monday and underlined it. She stacked the papers again, the folder thick now, the weight familiar. A knock came near dusk. Eliza opened the door and found the deputy holding a clipboard and a look that said he wished he weren't here. "Just a follow-up," he said. Eliza nodded. "Come in." He glanced around, checked boxes, and handed her a card. 6 months, he said. "You're good." "Thank you," Eliza said. When the door closed, she leaned her head back against it and breathed. Not relief, completion. Jack came by with the tools box and a paper bag that smelled like bread. He set both down and waited for her to speak. "I start Monday," Eliza said. Jack nodded. "Good." They fixed the cabinet that night and the one that stuck in the bathroom. Eliza held the light. Jack turned the screw. The hinges caught and stayed. Outside, the snow melted into narrow streams that ran toward the gutter, choosing a direction without asking. Eliza watched them until they were gone. The phone rang once more after dark. The director's number. Eliza answered. "Yes." "We've updated your status," the director said. "No further action." "Thank you," Eliza said. She ended the call and wrote the time in the margin. Habit, not fear. I can put the pen down. The first Monday came clean and early. Eliza dressed Caleb and herself and stepped into the street with the folder tucked under her arm. The bus arrived on time. She took a seat and watched the city wake, the small motions adding up to morning. At the clinic, she clocked in and learned the new routine. Different halls, different doors, same work. She moved through it with the quiet certainty of someone who had already been tested. At lunch, she called the childcare office to confirm pickup. She wrote the name of the woman who answered and smiled when she said it. After shift, Eliza walked home instead of taking the bus. The cold was kinder now. She liked the way the city felt when you crossed it on foot. The apartment greeted her without questions. She fed Caleb and laid him down. She sat at the table and opened the folder one last time that day. She didn't rearrange anything. She closed it and slid it into the drawer. Jack knocked later, softer than before. "How was it?" he asked. Eliza thought. It stayed, she said. That's enough. He nodded. I'll leave you to it. She stopped him at the door. Stay, she said. Not an ask. An invitation with terms. Jack took the chair and set his hands flat on his knees. The dog lay by the door and slept. They ate in the quiet. Eliza washed the dishes and lined them up. She stood at the window and watched the street lights come on, each one a mark that meant someone had paid attention. Later, when the building had settled, Eliza took the lease from the drawer and read the plain words again. Month to month, 30 days. She placed it back and closed the drawer. I choose to remain. Winter pressed once more at the edges that night, a reminder rather than a threat. Eliza tucked the blanket around Caleb and hummed the tune she'd stopped herself from finishing before. This time she let it go on, low and steady. In the morning the street lay open and wet, reflecting the sky like a ledger you could read if you learned how. Eliza lifted her son and felt his weight, real and earned. She picked up her bag and headed for the door. Jack stood and opened it for her. Tomorrow, he said. Eliza nodded. And the day after. They stepped into the cold together, not toward an ending, but toward the work that stays. As the storm fades, what's left isn't a dramatic victory or a perfect future. It's something quieter and more real. A young mother learns that being strong doesn't mean never being afraid, but choosing to stand anyway. A baby is safe because someone chose to stop, to care, and to stay. And a man learns that real duty isn't just about rules, it's about people. This story isn't about being a hero. It's about making one brave decision when everything feels stacked against you. About choosing your own path when others try to decide it for you. About how family can begin in unexpected ways, built from trust, effort, and showing up when it matters most. If you're watching this and it reminded you of a time you felt judged, overlooked, or pressured to be someone you're not alone. Many of us are still figuring things out, one choice at a time. Strength doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it's quiet, steady, and deeply personal. If this story meant something to you, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from, or what part stayed with you the most. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story. More journeys are coming, and you're welcome here.